Anyway, we're glad to have you here. I had the opportunity to talk to you, 2 years ago in Discovery about railroads and things, things that I had seen when I was the fire chief, some situations that we thought we could make better, and y'all were looking at it. So it's an honor to have y'all here tonight to do your presentation. So I'm going to turn it over to you if you need me or any of the boards for assistance. Don will be glad to help you.
I'm good.
Those of you who might like to see the slides, as I understand, they can only see them up here. Like to see the slides, they really add to the presentation.
I see it. Can we turn it a little?
Yeah. You want to turn it out to them? Yeah. Yes. Carol, we're going to see if we could turn that out a little bit more. And if you or your students need to, they can move out to the center here if they need to be where they could see what.
And forgive them for looking at the script. We change the script from time to time, so that's I don't expect them to have to memorize it. Not in this case.
Oh, there he is. I was wondering where Donald went. Down. We're fine. Yes, we're fine. And if we need to, we'll get up and walk out to be able to, and not out of the place, but out here to see. So.
The slide, George is in the slides, and Griff and Billy are in the slides. So we show what the problem is in the slides.
Sounds looks good.
We were Miss Paola's Wednesday Discovery team at Reeves Elementary last year. This year, we're in 4th grade at Harper McCon.
Last year in Discovery, our groups did a research study called Project Citizen.
For Project Citizen, kids identify real-life problems in their schools or communities and try to find solutions. Our Discovery class decided to focus on making the railroad crossings in Long Beach safer.
When we studied about the history of Long Beach, we learned the railroad was built from New Orleans to Mobile and completed in 1875. At that time, there weren't many people living along the coast, so it probably wasn't as much of a problem as it is now. Now, because the railroad runs through all the towns from Bay St. Louis to Pascagoula, cars, trucks, and buses cross the tracks all day and all night. For lots of reasons, the railroad crossings in Long Beach and other cities have become a serious problem.
In Project Citizen, the first step is to learn more about the problem. So we interviewed Mr. Boone and a retired railroad engineer. He told us what it felt like to see cars trying to beat the train.
He also told us about one time when he saw 3 kids and a dog by the tracks in front of a train. He said the bigger boy ran across first with the dog, but the girl pulled a toddler across right in front of the train. He said he was shaking all over because he knew he couldn't stop the train.
We searched the records to learn more about the problem. This is the chart of the number of people killed on crossings in Mississippi from 2013 to 2019. Harrison County is listed in every column in red. Harrison County had more accidents and deaths than any other county in Mississippi during those years.
We also found the accident reports for all the crossings in Long Beach and the ones that border Long Beach, like Lewis and Mench Avenues. There have been a lot of accidents on the tracks in Long Beach and other cities along the coast.
We also interviewed our fire chief, Griff Skelly, and police chief, Billy Seal. They came to tell us about responding to railroad crossings, accidents, and how they are affected by what they see. They told us we could stop accidents from happening by paying attention and making good choices. Next, we interviewed Mr. Carpenter, who is on our school board. He told us about the tour bus that was hit by the train in Biloxi 7 years ago. There were senior citizens on the bus, and some of them were killed when it was hit by the train. It was a lowrider tour bus, and it was snagged on the tracks because the driver's GPS guided him to a crossing that was too steep for the bus to cross.
Mr. Carpenter also told us that the locomotives weigh over 400,000 pounds, and sometimes there are multiple engines pulling the train.
Each freight or rail car can weigh up to 350,000 pounds when it is loaded, and the locomotive can pull from 100 to 200 freight cars at a time.
Mr. Carpenter also told us about Newton's second law of motion. If a locomotive engine and the freight it is pulling weighs 44 million pounds and the train car is going 45 miles an hour, it would hit you with 1,980,000,000 pounds of force. That's like a can of root beer being run over by a car.
Depending on how many rail cars the locomotive is pulling, it can take the length of 18 football fields to stop the train. That is at least a mile.
We created this survey to see how students, parents, teachers, bus drivers, and first responders and others felt about the safety problems caused by a railroad.
84% of people we surveyed that the railroad crossings in Long Beach were a problem. Although a lot of problems were identified, we decided to learn more about the ones we thought were the most serious.
One of the biggest problems is that the crossings on our tracks are too steep. That makes the crossing more dangerous because you can't see the road in front of you and what is coming at you on the other side of the tracks when you are crossing. My mom told Miss Paola she almost had a head-on collision with another vehicle because the driver was in the middle of the road on a crossing. When we interviewed Mayor Bass, he told us that he has been working with engineers to make the crossings more level. But every time the railroad company works on the tracks, they clean out some of the rocks and add more rocks on top, which makes the crossings even more steep.
The steep crossings also make it impossible for some vehicles to cross without getting stuck on the tracks. Mayor Bass said that the only crossing that is safe for big trucks to cross in Long Beach is Jeff Davis Avenue. That is the main street of our town.
This is not a new problem. We have an article on our board about an interview with Mayor Billy Skelly in 2017. He told WLOX when CSX improves or restores crossings that can raise the elevation of tracks, even if it's just a few inches. You put about 15 or 20 years of that together, you're continuing to raise the crossing, and you're creating a situation where it hangs up. This problem has gotten more and more serious. If we don't find a solution that corrects this problem, just imagine how steep the crossings will be when we start driving. Maybe the mayors of all the cities on the coast could get together with the railroad or government people to brainstorm ways to solve this problem.
That leads to another big problem. Trucks and buses use GPS that take them to crossings that are not safe to cross. Even though there are signs saying the crossings are too steep for trucks, the drivers trust their GPS and get stuck on the tracks. That was one of the reasons the tour bus got stuck on the tracks in Biloxi and was hit by the train. If we contacted the people who made the GPS units, maybe they could create GPS units to reroute trucks and buses to safer crossings.
Although this problem didn't rank high on the survey, hanging around, playing, or taking pictures on the track is a big problem. This is a picture of Miss Paola's super smart granddaughter, but Miss Paola says she wasn't smart enough to stay off the tracks.
These two sisters and their friend were taking selfies between double tracks in Utah. They didn't realize there was a second train coming at them from behind. When their cell phones were found, the mom learned the second train was only 2 seconds away when they took this picture. They were all killed. Miss Paola wouldn't let us watch their mom telling the story on YouTube. But If you are older, maybe you should watch it. If teenagers and adults saw the video, it might help to solve this problem.
This picture was taken on the south side of the tracks on Jeff Davis Avenue. When you look to the east or west, you can see very far down the tracks. Can't see very far down the tracks because the trees aren't being trimmed. That is a problem that can be solved. We think, however, whoever has the power to trim those trees should do that now. It would make it easier to see if a train was coming, and it wouldn't cost a lot of money.
We also want to do presentations for adults and kids at school. We have a lot of information to share about the dangers of railroad crossings. We think we could make kids and adults more aware of the problems and they would be more careful.
One of the most important things we learned in our research was about the blue signs. As of September of 2017, the blue signs have been added to every railroad crossing in the nation. Most of the people we asked said that they saw someone stuck on the track. If they saw someone stuck on the tracks, they would call 911. But the best thing to do is call the number on the blue sign and tell the dispatcher in Mobile or Jacksonville, Florida, about the problem. The dispatcher needs to know the number of the crossing that is on the sign. The dispatcher could radio the engineer on the rail line and might be able to stop the train before an accident happened. When that banana truck got stuck on the tracks in Gulfport a few weeks ago, that train might have been able to stop if the driver had known about the blue sign.
We created a card with the blue sign information on it as part of our action plan. We would like you to have it today. You could take a picture of it and keep it handy in your phone, or you could keep it in your car. This card or that blue sign could save lives. You should always expect a train.
Miss Paola has taught us that if we gather information about ways to solve real-life problems, adults will listen to our ideas. We have learned that we have a voice and we can make a difference.
You may have heard Miss Paola's favorite quote before, but we want you to hear it tonight.
A child is a person who is going to carry on what you have started. We are going to sit where you are sitting, and when you are gone, attend to those things which you think are important.
You may adopt all of the policies you please, but how they are carried out will depend on us.
We will assume control of your cities, states, and nations. We are going to move in and take over your churches, schools, university, and corporations.
The fate of humanity is in our hands.
A lot of Project Citizens. This is just one of them. One of them, of course, was the Quarles House. Another one was the walking track that we thought initially that group of kids who were, they were seniors the year that the track went on the ground. They wanted to go along the canals to do a walking track, a non-motorized track along the canals. From the very beginning, I thought, I knew that was never going to happen. No one was ever going to let them build a track behind their houses. So, but you can't say that to kids when they're doing a project. You have to say, great idea. I bet we can make that happen. And so we didn't do that. But then Richard Bennett loved the idea. So he had the grant writer for the city turn it into a grant, and she took all of our stuff and sent it to MDOT. And we got $730,000 to do the track in July of 2005. So of course, when the hurricane hit in August, everything went on hold. And but it came back around when they were in the 10th grade. We came back together, and we tried to convince homeowners to let us use the backyards, to build the track back by the canal. knowing that it would get flooded. We had actually walked it with Mikey. We'd taken his daughter was in that class, and we walked back there just, to see if we could actually make a track right there. Just, it was terrible. We could never have done that. But they didn't let it go. The city held on to it. Glenn Mueller actually had a strong voice in that because he wanted to be sure that track, the money didn't disappear and go to someone else. So it turned out that they decided to try to put it on the grounds of the Sportsplex. So the walking track there, that's it.
That was a result, and I'm talking to y'all, that was a result. If you go out to the senior rec building, you walk that walking track, the children before you, when you're talking about replacing us and filling the voids that we leave and everything, you're filling their void of what they did. But those children is what made us be able to do that walking track out there. And then I know there's another project was worked on by a Discovery class, and you want to talk to them about that?
About the Quarles House?
The Quarles House. I know you're very proud of that also,
Oh,
as
yes.
you should be.
Oh, yes. Quarles House, of course, you know what it looked like. Those of you who've lived here all your lives, you saw it from after Camille. You were probably just kids at that time, but you saw it, and of course it was just disreputable. It was horrible. It was falling down. Even at that point, Mr. Watrous had taken all of the porches off because he was hopeful of actually putting them back on, but then that never happened. So it just sat that way until Katrina hit in 2005, and when Katrina hit, the only thing that was left of that house were the rafters, on the roof, were the rafters. So we appeal to people, that group of kids are actually now in their 30s, almost 30 maybe, and they are teaching and working as nurses and doctors, et cetera, all over the place. But those kids actually wanted to save that house. So they were the kids who were doing all the work and trying to paint boards to put on the windows, which looked just terrible. But still, none of that, it's like putting that silk purse, on that pig's ear. It was just never going to do anything. But at least we didn't stop working on it. And for years, we worked on it more and more. But we were able to get in touch with the Mississippi Heritage Trust, and they paid for the roof to go on the house. So we were able to save the Quarles House. So we feel as though that was a contribution that we made. And then through the years, we've never quit. Every group of kids has done History of Long Beach. George even came with us and was on stage with us one year when we presented the skits to the kids in the school. He played the mayor that year. But that we do History of Long Beach every year. I take kids out. We just came from the house 2 weeks ago. We were there at the house sharing History of Long Beach with the kids and letting that group of kids be the first ones that were Discovery kids to get inside the house. Since back when Mr. Watrous said you can't take a child in that house when it was all disreputable. But I sneaked them in when he went to eat lunch. So they did at least to get in the house before that. They were not the first kids to get in. But anyway, that's what we did. And it was just keeping it alive so that people didn't forget. And then when we knew that the family was going to donate the money, or donate the house to the city, we knew that we couldn't get grants for it unless it was donated to the city. But Richard Bennett gave me the information about the grant that was available, and so I was able to put that grant together. And he said, ask for $3 million. So that's what I asked for, and he said, you'll probably get 2, and that's what we got. So we were able to pay for that house with that grant to get most of the work done. I'm sure if the city contributed to that as well, but fortunately $2 million did pretty well to pay for everything. At one point when I was there taking pictures of them working on it, I talked to the contractor and said, so did the $2 million not stretch to the inside of the house? And he said, no, we're working on the inside. We've got the inside covered. So apparently it paid for more than we thought.
Yeah, it did. I think, what was the final? We've come up or close to where we're at, about 1.6 or 7 million. Yeah.
That was
Keeney?
the contract price, yes, but then we also had enough money to do site work and fencing
Right.
around the house as well.
Yeah, we've done a lot over there. I couldn't be any happier for those children at the time who started talking about us getting this. The small part that I played in getting the house donated to us from Mr. Jim Alexander and Miss Janet Alexander Griffin, it's just a phenomenal thing for us. This is the only old house we have left in Long Beach since Katrina. And for us to leave that piece of legacy, the board here who voted in favor of us moving forward and doing this project, the children who have talked about it and worked on that since it first became noticed, the ability for them to keep it up, and then Miss Paola, I can't thank you enough. And I would really like to have the opportunity to come and sit with your students, if we could bring all those that have worked on this project together at one time and talk to you of where we are at this current time with improving our crossings. And this has been a part of you. We've sent stuff to MDOT, we've sent stuff to CSX to let them know it's not just us as adults, it's you as the children, as our future that are working on this. So I thank y'all so much for your contribution to what we've got going on here, to the future leadership of what we have here. So thank y'all very much. Ms. Paola, you have anything to say?
Oh, one more, I remembered one more project. One of the projects that we worked on, that group of kids are in their junior year this year, I believe, at the high school. Those are the kids who felt that our schools were not secure.
Right.
And they were the ones that I took on the road to do their presentation over and over again to try to convince you as the voters in Long Beach to pass the bond issue. Thank you for passing the bond issue.
Yes.
I know it's affected your taxes, and for that I apologize, but we had to have a school. We had to have a school. We had to have a place that was safe for the kids. And that group of kids, because they were my more anxious kids that year, they were the ones that were worried about that. My daughter was actually in a high school senior the year that we had the shooting, that the police were killed. That was the year she was a senior, and that young man went to the high school first. Had a whole lot of ammunition and found her at the high school. It could have been a bloodbath.
So, and we thank them. Yes, we were very fortunate, very blessed that we lost no children that day. We did, unfortunately, lose two good police officers, great friends, cherished friends. But also, we now, because of their efforts, we have a very safe high school. They're working continuously to make all of our schools safe, the elementary schools, all of them. I can't thank y'all enough for the efforts that you've led them to on this, and to be able to see the fruits of what you've done come through. I thank you so much. To the students, thank y'all so much. Congratulations on this project. Well worth it.
Picture together of all y'all, a picture of all y'all real fast. Yeah. Last time.
Hey, raise your hand. Come on, Patrick, you might be in this class one day. Where you running off to?